G'day ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Draw with Jazza. I'm Jazza, and today we're taking the masculine and over-masculinizing it and drawing a bodybuilder. And next week we're going to take the feminine and add a lot of femininity. Try and say that 10 times fast without stopping. The reason we're doing this is because often in comics or movies or cartoons, these masculine or feminine figures are often over exaggerated so that we can use their features to really bring out that characteristic. For example, someone like the Hulk on the masculine end, or someone like Jessica Rabbit on the feminine end. The other thing I want to say just before I get started is that my digital tablet is currently being repaired. So for the next month, I will be using a smaller Wacom tablet. So some of you might notice that I'm drawing and redrawing lines a lot. That's because I'm kind of adjusting. Anyways, let's get started. So to begin with, we begin with the construction lines, and I'm going to do this in two stages before I get to the refining line work. The first stage is blocking it out. So we have a fairly normal sized head, but we're really blowing everything out of proportion for this. So we have a very large torso, very large shoulders, and massively large sort of those neck, upper back muscles. We're drawing the skeleton of our figure, so kind of where the bones of the arms would go before we lay on the muscle. So the muscle in this case, because we're drawing a bodybuilder, it's going to be really quite broad, and they're going to tie into each other quite a lot. It's interesting because they're not going to be, while they will be defined separately, when you're drawing a very hulky sort of character, the muscles tend to look like one big lumpy mass rather than being really individualized like they might be on a character who is athletic like Spider-Man. Anyways, the upper torso and the shoulders and the chest all kind of tie into one area, which I sort of keep in mind when I draw that, because that accentuates that masculine area. And then once we've got the basic shapes put in, we're going to go through and add the finer details. So this includes the basic shape and structure of the face, and then we're going to also go through and add where the muscle divisions are. So while we have the basic shape, it's another thing to kind of add the specific anatomy itself. So it's always good to have a reference, kind of look up some anatomy pictures on Google, or if you have some books that are helpful, that's really good too. But just to know basically how they lay out, for example, how the chest moves into the shoulder muscle and how they are separated from and separate the bicep and tricep muscle, how the forearm kind of comes across from the outside of the elbow to the inside of the wrist, and that happens kind of on both hands. The other thing that I tend to do when I'm drawing very masculine figures like this is accentuate sort of hard edges. So we can see here we have a very pointy sort of cheekbone and chin. And then when we get to things like the abdominal, the shoulders, the chest, everything's much more kind of jagged, kind of hard, what do you call them, just kind of straight-ish lines while still maintaining the curvature of the muscles and the anatomy. Whereas when next week we get to the feminine aspect of things, you'll find that things are a lot more different, far less jagged and far smoother. Adding the details of the hands and things like that, creases within different areas of the body, just to kind of get ready for the final line work, dividing things like the muscles and the legs. And because it's a bodybuilder, the focus on drawing a character like this is the anatomy. It's not necessarily because they're a character to be used for anything. That being said, that means basically clothing is pretty minimum. If anyone's seen bodybuilding photos, they look kind of ridiculous. Anyways, so we've got our proportions in, we've got our basic anatomy structure in, and now we're ready for the final line work. So once we've done our overall stuff, we're going to get our black line. We're going to zoom in and we're going to do the nice final sort of line work. I usually begin with the face, so doing things like the eyebrows and the eye and stuff like that, and moving around to the bigger areas of the body. Now, like I always say with the lines, less is more. You don't want to overdo it. You just want to get the basic communication done. So too many lines on the face will make them look old and won't count as nice looking detail. It will just be over the top. Same with when you're drawing the anatomy, to do the basic edges of the bulk parts of the muscle. As for the dividing lines or the rippling bits or the veins and things like that, it's almost better to do that with color and shading rather than hard lines itself. It's good to use hard lines occasionally, but fairly minimally, because then we get a nice balance with the color. Now that the line work of the character is done, we're ready to go through and do some coloring. So with this character, it's a bit of a tan sort of figure, so I'm going through and picking the colors that I think work for him, and then I'm going to go through those and add those to the body. Now, as you can see, I'm adding these sections where the shade kind of spikes out. Now, that is instead of using actual hard lines to create that ripped effect on the muscles. We're doing that with the shade, and while having a softer approach to that is far better at accentuating that anatomical feature. I tend to think that it looks quite good. It's used quite a lot in comics and cartoons and things like that, so it's a very simple approach to getting that cut sort of look in a masculine sort of character. After filling in the mid-tones and then doing in the spandex pant bits, we do the hair and eyes, and we're pretty much done. So the big bulk of work in a character like this really is the anatomy, the planning, and then the execution of the line work around the anatomy and the shading to accentuate that. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed the Let's Draw this week. Next week is going to be a very feminine one, and then we'll move on from there. Make sure to leave your suggestions of what future Let's Draws should be, and until next time, ladies and gentlemen, I will see you later.